All right, here we are for another episode of the Exertis Broadcast Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Smith from Exertis. With me in studio today is the venerable Jordan Friday, Switchmaster extraordinaire over there.
Senior content producer.
Senior content producer. Fair enough. He's got to put the word in. That's good. I like it. Joining us in the field today, back again for more pain and punishment, is Mr. Rick Puleo in a wooded bunker somewhere in the Pacific Northwest.
Cool paneling.
Yeah, that's right. It's good paneling. And also with us today, special guest, Mr. Kane Peterson from the actual company called NewTek. That's right.
My case, green screen background.
Hey, it looks good. It looks good. But look, you got the logo and everything. It's killer.
Yeah.
I dig it. All right, gentlemen, thank you both for being with me today. I appreciate you joining me through all the hurdles and fun. Today's topic. City, state, local government, like, we're seeing a lot of business in the city council space. And so really, as we look at how people communicate, what they're doing to communicate, the hybrid workflows, the in-studio workflows, all these different, ways that people are presenting what's going on behind these closed doors. We want to talk about why somebody would use a TriCaster. What are the things they should be thinking about in using a TriCaster? And then more specifically, Kane, you've got something really cool to show us that you've sort of developed as a workflow within that space that you can add onto a TriCaster. So Jordan, if you would bring up the first slide, because, it wouldn't be a show without graphics.
Absolutely.
There we go. TriCaster for city government. Love it. All right. Moving to the next one. Okay. So right away, guys, I want to ask a question. Why in the world would somebody with all the choices out there, with the Russes, the Black Magics, and the broadcast picks, if that's a choice anymore, why would somebody choose a TriCaster? Rick, I'm going to throw your way first.
Ease of use. Ease of use because they have everything that they need is in one box. They have camera sources, they have built-in graphics, rolling video clips, multiple outputs, television studio in a box with the ease of use.
And when you say ease of use, are we talking, on the interface, in the version of controlling it? Like what makes it easy to use? Because none of it, I'm looking at what that guy does over there. None of it looks easy to me.
No, it's true. But once you develop your workflow, you can develop a very easy to use workflow that hits all of your production needs on a really simplified number of operations. How's that for a word scramble? I think the point is that city council meetings, although they are not exactly NHL hockey, although I have heard that some can be, it's essentially pretty straightforward. And when you're dealing with camera selection and then bringing up lower third graphics or full screen graphics, a lot of these can be accomplished easily with macros. And then it becomes, what is the most easiest way to trigger those macros? And that's where I feel ease of use. That's why ease of use really comes in.
Because of the different interfaces, obviously, right? The primary control board interface, the web, the ability to augment it sort of externally with, say, like Crestron or QSC or one of those control systems. Yeah. Okay. No, that starts to make sense.
Or even the main interface with a touchscreen.
Ah, yes. Touchscreen. I like touchscreen. Kane, what's on your mind when it comes to like, why would somebody choose this? You have to say, it's you don't get a choice because you work for a company, but
No, but I agree. It's many of the same things that he just spoke about. And I think the other thing though is that we have a product that scales very nicely. Whether it be that you're a small town, city or village, right? Maybe you don't even have an on-staff dedicated person to doing this, right? We could still build something that they can operate. But then as things grow, you're a medium-sized city to a very large city that maybe has multiple people. We have solutions that fit all of those levels, all of those capabilities. And even if it's a matter of, sometimes we're doing a larger production, and then sometimes we're doing a very small production, right? One system can scale very well through those different workflows as well. You don't have to have a person at each spot, right? Because we can control the cameras, we can do the streaming, we can do the titling, we've got the built-in audio controls. So you can collapse all of that down into a smaller production as necessary, but then you can also expand it back out if you're working on something larger and you've got those extra people to assist with that production.
So it's interesting. We were doing some research a couple months ago on, like your average city or county, and your average city or county has something as at a minimum of like 35 different divisions that are meeting on a regular basis with different board members, with different, sort of users and audience, and the ability for the TriCaster to sort of be able to pivot between those different departments with their own graphics, their own look, their own lower thirds, their own names, and to be able to build all those different shows. And then each day as you walk in, to be able to just recall all of that in a matter of seconds. That to me is very powerful. And when you talk about that flexibility, it's like, yeah, no matter your department, we're ready for you, so to speak, right? It's ready to go in a matter of minutes. So I think that becomes really, really powerful. That scalability thing you hit too, it's like being able to grow with you as you go, because there's really no limit because of NDI on the number of sources you can bring in or where those sources would come from. When we look at some of the traditional switchers on the market, it's like, well, everything's got to go flow through the SDI router, right? Okay, well, there's our first bottleneck, our first limitation, right? And as soon as I go from my 16 by 16 and I suddenly need a 17th input, well, what am I unplugging in order to get that? And with NDI, it's like, hey, as long as it's on the network, we're here, we're ready to go. So that becomes, to me, a very, part of that overall story of flexibility of why somebody would choose it. I think on sources would be another one. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say both on the input side, but also on the output side too. Hey, you need to have an overflow room to have more people watch. You can set up a decoder and be able to put a monitor up there so additional people can watch from a different area. So there's bringing it in, but also sending it back out as well.
Right.
Just like we're throwing it out to our TV or so. Yeah.
We're going out to Teams. We got signals going everywhere. And that's important, right? It's not just your audience that aren't in the building or are in the building, but could be, anywhere on all the different streaming services or not. And that comes into the conversation of Teams and Zoom and all the ways that you can integrate in. And I was going to say that to me is the other important part that I think somebody needs to be looking at the TriCaster right now. It's so many of these environments we're talking to. It's like, well, hey, not everybody's back in the building yet, and we still have some board members that are on Zoom or that are coming in via Teams now. It's like, how do we create that? And so that, with the TC2, obviously, it's like that becomes the perfect conversation piece of saying, hey, those apps are built right in. That's part of the story. And so now you just click to call or click to connect, as the thing would go. So, and now those people are in, sort of the way, if those of you watching at home, we've got a team session running across the room on a PC. That's where we're pulling in Rick and Kane right now, and they're in our switcher as individual sources. So it's just that easy. Jordan, did we miss anything on that slide? I mean, I know we had a couple bullet points up.
Maybe. It's possible. We can check it out. Yeah, absolutely.
What did I miss? We got, limitless sources, easy views, IP input, Zoom, Team, Skype, we got that. Automation and camera control. All right.
It's pretty big.
Automation and camera control is really important, right? Because I think both of you hit on this, is that single interface to trying to drive everything. So what else is in that automation side of it that we haven't hit yet, or that we should?
Well, I would just say that it's not just, we have automation built into the TriCaster, so we can control cameras, we can potentially even control external systems, but it also allows for the flip. We can be controlled by other systems as well. So you're putting a system in at maybe a place that's got, let's say, an AMX or a Questron or something like that, and they would like to be able to have that system when they come hit record, right? It triggers the TriCaster record. It's possible to do that. So we can be on both sides of that automation. We could be the driver of the automation or accepting the automation, or both at the same time, really, for very sophisticated workflows.
Well, and that was sort of the catalyst that drove me to get you on the show, is that you and I had talked a couple of weeks ago about all the things that you were controlling now. You had this list of, hey, look at all the stuff we can control that isn't made by NewTek. It's like all these, it's just the massive list of things that you've built the took control of the API of those manufacturers to augment the workflow of a TriCaster. Because look, I mean, none of these things ever stand alone, right? We know that in every environment, there's 27 manufacturers all working in concert most of the time to create the what we see as a show. And so I thought that was just super powerful when you showed me that list to say, look at all the things you guys are doing to enable better workflows for people, better control through the use of API control. And so it's exciting to me, and that we are going to pivot to that one in a couple minutes here when Kane shows us one of those. Let's go to the other side of the conversation, which is, okay, let's say somebody who doesn't have a TriCaster right now, they're on an old Sony Anycast, and they're ready to upgrade and look. What are the items that they need to be thinking about sort of as they plan to replace that old switcher with, a toy or a tool like the TriCaster? I say toy because it feels like one sometimes when I play with it.
It does feel like a toy.
Yeah,
for sure.
No doubt.
It is a lot of fun. There's no doubt.
I know. Yeah. We love it when people come over for the first time and they look at it and they're like, whoa. That's so cool. Kane, you start that one. What is top of your mind when instructing people on, the questions that they need to be thinking about?
Well, I mean, the first is really how many sources do you need now? How many sources are you looking to move to in the future so you can determine the right size system? What kind of gear do you have that you're looking to hook into it? What kind of video formats are you working with? And certainly if you're going to be replacing any of that gear, because sometimes it happens the other way around, right? You could say I'm going to be replacing the switcher, but sometimes it might be I'm starting with the cameras first. So it's making sure you got cameras that are designed for that future use, like ones that, let's say, have NDI built into them so that when you upgrade the other equipment later, right, you've already got the support you need. So I guess I always look at it from a larger standpoint of like, what's all the pieces, what's getting replaced, what are we upgrading with, what do we need now, where are we going to in the future, so that we can make sure everything is being designed correctly. And it's not like, oh, well, you did this, but now you got to swap that out for something else because, it just wasn't big enough or powerful enough for your needs.
Yeah. And I want to stop you. The first thing you said right out of the gate was sources. Let's for a second, Rick, define source for me now, because it used to be number of cameras, and I think it's gone way beyond that now.
Yeah. Number one, in terms of thinking of a source, I always, when I do trainings, I talk about an external source, and obviously a camera is an external source. But when you're thinking about a city council, obviously we're going to have a number of cameras. You're going to have a number of presentation sources, such as PowerPoint or whatever other content coming from a CPU. Those are external sources. Document cameras. There are some facilities, some city organizations that have multiple document cameras available during any type of a city council meeting. So those external sources, I think, are a great starting point to think of, because at any time during that meeting, they may need to go to one of those sources live at any point. And that's a good concept as to where you're going to select how large of a production switcher you're going to need. Oh, also, external sources such as Teams and Zoom. Yeah. Those should be considered external sources as well.
Spot on. And I think that inherently becomes like that is the one thing that really nobody else can do right now, right? When we think about in terms of the other manufacturers that are out there in the live space, to bring in something like Teams or Zoom would be, a bunch of gear, scan converters and audio converters and all these pieces to kind of, create mixed minuses and pull data from within the broadcast side to the team side and the team side back. And even then you mostly get just a, multi-view of faces, versus with the integration with Teams and Zoom and the other platforms that exist within the NewTek world, we get ISOs. We get every user is their own source, and I can cut to them, or more in case Jordan can cut to them.
Thank goodness I can do that.
No doubt. So to me, that's like the sort of like the straw that broke the camel's back of all the other switchers out there to say, like, okay, if you're doing anything with remote, hybrid, or video conferencing, like, why would you want to be anywhere else? I mean, that's my favorite conversation right now with anybody who calls with a Blackmagic. How do I get NDI into my Blackmagic? Oh, well, we start by
how do you get anything that's not baseband into it, right? Because let's face it, the world is built around computers and networking now. It's everywhere. So
absolutely. And so step one is put a TriCaster between your Blackmagic and your sources.
There you go.
That's the best. I saw a client recently that had like 6 Zoom machines, and each person was a separate call. right? They would have 6 Zoom sessions going, scan, convert output of each one. And that's how they were doing their production. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of heavy iron to solve a very simple problem with, NDI in Teams room or in Zoom room. Right? I don't know.
Yeah, I've talked to clients who've gone even higher than that. They've had a dozen machines doing that exact kind of workflow just because they want isolated for each one. Admittedly, that's a very heavy, very manual solution, but for some people, that's what they want. The nice thing is we give you all sorts of levels in between, right? Yeah. We can do just the Zoom Teams call right on a system and pull 9 callers right out and put them all in video windows or video sources and work with them. So you don't have to go to that level necessarily just to get a bunch of callers on a production.
Okay, Ken, let me ask you, like from a stress test, how many people have you put on a Teams or Zoom call and pulled in independently?
We can do up to 9
in the box, but have you done
within a TC2E?
Yeah. But if you did an external one, have you tried that with an external?
I've had some people use additional external ones, and so you could certainly go higher than that if you needed to. And at that point, it's just a question of I know there's people I've talked to that have done. Up to like 50 or so.
Oh, awesome.
Obviously we're talking about multiple systems being used. I'm not saying 50 individual computers, but like 50 multiple systems coming in. So it's certainly possible. It's just a question of what is the final output and what are you kind of looking for everything to be.
But that's just it right there. It's that flexibility of saying, oh my gosh, I've got that 12th caller, that 13th caller, that 15th person, and there's an avenue here that doesn't require suddenly just bringing in $10,000 worth of gear to solve, right? It's, hey, we got another CPU, light it up.
Yeah.
The great part is really when you think about it, it's just, you got a computer, let me put this free piece of software on it. Now it's a source.
Yeah.
So
No, scan converter is the greatest thing known.
It's screen capture now, right?
Yeah. Oh, screen capture. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jordan, did we miss anything on that slide? Let's pull the slide back in. Ladies and gentlemen, graphic number 27 comes to air. There we go.
Absolutely.
Wait, there it is. All right. Number of council members. So we talked about this early on, Rick, you and I, like camera types and placements, or where are you putting the cameras in relation to the production, the number of council members or seats. And that one's going to become like, most people go, well, look, I got 2 cameras pointed at the council members. Why does it matter? Well, I think, Kane, you're going to show us a reason why that matters, and what you can do with a few more cameras, a few more angles, that type of thing, that flexibility. But the number one on there that Rick, you and I talk about this a lot is who's running it, right? Who's going to be the person running either the event, the meeting, the TriCaster? To me, that's really important. Rick, why is that so important to you?
The reason why is it gets down to experience. Obviously, the TriCaster is a fully featured live production switcher. And production is complicated. You have a lot going on. And you may need to, depending on the complexity of the meeting, of the broadcast that you want to create out of that meeting, you need to figure out, how to simplify and automate a lot of those functions. So somebody with a substantial live production experience walking up to a TriCaster and switching a meeting is no problem. But if it is a clerk that's being assigned the task of producing that meeting for broadcast, things can get really dicey and things can get really complicated. The ability to create macros that automate all that function, it gets down to pushing a single button when the mayor speaks and then pushing another button when council member Bob speaks. And so that becomes really, really important. And in my opinion, TriCaster really checks all the boxes for meeting that goal.
Now, just so you know, I voted for Bob, so thank you for mentioning that.
I didn't.
That's good. All right, did we miss anything on that list? I mean, I think that was that. I think those were the names. We really tore through it good, but let's just see.
Graphic number 47, please.
I can show it to you. Oh, the agenda. The agenda was actually sort of that last one, and I think that one's important because the agenda should drive the graphics and should be part of the graphics, right? And so being able to bring that in and out. And, you mentioned it, screen capture is just an easy way to take that, virtual agenda that's on a computer and bring that as a source and make it part of the graphics, or tying to something like live text where we're pulling from a database of that information and pulling it into live fly. So those are all things I think that are important to consider. Is like, hey, yes, we can. You don't have to make everything 3 times. We can do it once. Right?
Well, and then like when we do, I mean, there have been other times where certain platforms are sort of locked down. And if you want to play a video or something like that, it's like, ooh, we need a bunch of prep time for that. It's like with this, any video or image source is easily accessible, available. You pull it in, you pull it as a source, and then if somebody on the fly says, oh, well, can I yes, you can do that. Can I have 2 things that are like side? Yes. Pretty much you're only limited by your creativity with the TriCaster, which is why I think it's amazing.
That's scary with this group. Okay. Now we come to everybody's favorite hour, show and tell time.
Ooh.
Kane, talk to us about what you've built in this focused product, or this focused app development specifically in this market. Give me the rundown. What is it? What does it do?
Sure. So if you don't know, I'm actually at NewTek. I'm part of our professional services team. So often I'm tasked with helping our clients kind of get the maximum capability out of our systems. And that can be in a lot of different ways that can happen. But actually, a couple of years ago, we had a task where we needed to build an easy to use kind of console chamber control system so that operators could come in and just see like an overview of the room, right? Assign seating, tap a button, and it select the appropriate camera. We don't want to have on-screen camera moves, so it's got to be smart enough to know which camera is currently being used. And if that camera is being used, maybe go to a backup camera instead, right? And again, we don't want the user to have to figure this stuff out. We just want to have them tap a button on the screen and the system figure it out for them and pick the best camera and get that shot. And then also put up titles on the screen, right? Oh, here's who's talking. So we ended up building this application, and from that we have made this available to other users as well. And I've sold a bunch of these, in the U.S. and we've actually got some up in Canada and stuff that are being installed as well. And it is fairly customized, but this also means we can really adapt it to the end user's needs. So I was going to kind of give you a quick preview of what this looks like and how it operates. So just to kind of show you here.
And to me, this plays into that earlier conversation of who's using it. To me, this sounds like this could be the clerk sitting there in the auditorium, right? Or on the dais.
Yep. Yes, I have both sides of it. I have high-end users using it, and I also have people where it's just like, yes, this is brand new to them, right? And they're using this. So just really quick, just to show you here is my TriCaster, right? This is a TriCaster 410 I'm running right now. As you can see, I've got a couple different camera sources on it. You can see my green screen in the background because this is the TriCaster that's not building the green screen that we were just looking at. But this is the TriCaster I'm going to be controlling through my application. And this is the application itself. This is running on a separate computer. It just runs in a web browser, and this is using the API in our TriCaster to control everything. And so basically the way it works is I've just got kind of a sample screen in here. Here are all the different people like assigned right in their positions in here. And I can even go in and select people off my list and update them if they sit in different positions or they rearrange or people come in last minute and I need to place somebody in this spot, right? I can just select somebody off the list, let's say myself, right? And then I want to put myself, let's say in this button position right here, I can just say set myself there. And now I'm set up, because that's where I'm sitting. But then the whole idea here is that when I select any one of these buttons, you'll see that it has picked a camera. It's moved it. Now my PTZs are just pointed random shots in here. So I'm not saying it's picking anything appropriate for what it might be, but you can see it move the camera, right? If I pick a different one, it moves the camera. It's put the title on the screen so I can see what the title is going to look like. And then if I say that's the shot, I want to go to, that shot of me and that camera, I can just click on it and it brings it to air. It brings the title on. I can specify how long I want the title on the screen. It's even smart enough that if the title was blank for whatever reason, maybe I didn't fill the data in, it won't bring the title on, right? So it only displays it on air if there's data there. And then I can go somewhere else and pick a different camera, right? And it picks the camera and aims it. And show some of the intelligence, right? I only have a limited number of cameras around me. If I go pick a camera, let's say this person here, notice that the screen flashed kind of a white red on the screen there. That's notifying me that that camera is currently on air, and instead of just moving it, producing an on-screen move, it's saying, I can't move this camera right now, and I don't happen to have a backup camera set up for that position. But if I did, it would have gone to the backup camera and pulled that one up instead, right? So I can actually go to each spot and say, here's the primary camera, here's the backup camera, and then it would pull the appropriate one based upon the needs. But if I don't, let's say I don't have enough cameras to cover every position with two different shots, I can still say, well, there is no backup, but don't move it, right? Just keep it, and then I have to go to something else, right? And so this is something that when we are helping the client get this installed, we work with them, figure out how do they want this operation to work so we can program it appropriately, and then they can have it fully activate and work the way they want. And then just as a few last things in here, we have give you access to the streaming and recording functions, right? So I can literally just tap the button on here, and this would start up recording, right? And now I'm recording on the system, and if I was streaming, I can tap the streaming button. So I can do that from here as well. I can also control audio muting, right? I've had some clients where they want to be able to mute and unmute the stream based upon what's going on. We can do that kind of stuff as well. And we can even set up, just to show you as a last minute thing here, we can set up different room layouts. So maybe the client has different room configurations, or maybe they even have two different rooms, right, with NDI cameras in it. We could have different layouts set up for the different spaces, and then just pull that in and then be controlling that appropriate space in here as well. So we've had clients use it in that regard. So it's very customizable for the needs. When you pull up a room, we can have it pre-programmed with people where they're sitting. Each room can have their own layout with what people are sitting in what positions. So it's really just a matter of, getting it set up to the ways you need. And it's quite extensive, the capabilities we've built into this application.
That is cool. Well
done.
My brain just, though I think the primary thing, what I love most about that interface is it's not daunting. It's so cleanly simple for any user to walk up and go, oh yeah, I want this person on air right now.
Yeah,
right?
I've trained people on this, and literally it's like a 5-10 minute training. It's just kind of, and most people will set this up on a touch screen, right? They'll get like a Windows touch screen, like all in one desktop, and literally it's just tapping on this picture area, right? And that's like 99% of your operations, just tapping what you want, and then just tapping, you tap the button here, what you want, and then you tap, let's pick one that's actually going there, right? I want that one. Okay, send it to air, right? And there you go. And that's your operation for like 90% of your show.
And you could do the same thing it doesn't have to stay in the city council area. You could do this in house of worship, like, pan on the drummer, pan on the guitarist. Like, it looks like it has
Absolutely.
so many opportunities. It's
that
incredible.
Or boardrooms, right?
Yeah.
Anything that I would kind of say is assigned placement or seating or predetermined room layouts. Exactly. And we can make this graphic down here look any way you want. Now, I try to keep it simple, so very kind of clean lines and stuff on here. But I mean, in all honesty, the background's just a JPEG image. It could be a full color picture if you wanted it to be, right? You could take a picture of a room, and then we could put buttons on top of it that literally could be like, here's what the room physically looks like from a camera. And then you just tap the buttons for what you want where. So it can be really, again, however you want to configure this to look.
Rick, this is interesting. It kind of reminds me of how the guys over at Cloud Driven Solutions they've taken that same approach to the AV control for the room and to the agenda. And I could see how these two things could dovetail into each other over time, right? We've got, sort of one interface that's driving the agenda and, kind of everything together. It's pretty stinking cool.
But here's the key part to this that I think is important is that while addressing the weekly or biweekly or monthly or whatever the meetings are, this is perfect. It's an ideal solution to it. However, you could easily go back to your TriCaster the next day and perform and be able to create any other content that you want to create in a normal TriCaster live production format with, your skilled operators, but still be able to have that straightforward interface. on the day-to-day basis.
I actually will add, because one of the clients requested this, and that's one of the things we've customized this often, but just to what you're getting at, we've designed it for mostly to be a do the workflow all from here, but there's a mode we can put it into where it could be in an assistant mode, right? So your TriCaster operator runs the show like they normally would, but then an assistant is over here and they're tapping the buttons, and all it does is the PTZ control, and it highlights which camera it's controlling. That way the assistant can say, oh, camera 3, oh, camera 5, right? And all they're doing is just hitting the buttons, but all the actual switching operation is still done by the operator. So if you are in a larger setup and you kind of want that kind of workflow, it can operate in that manner as well.
And so, Kane, from a logistical standpoint, you're hosting this on the TriCaster or on a separate machine?
Well, it's a web app, actually. So the web app gets installed on the TriCaster, but it actually runs on a computer in a web browser. So we typically use a Windows computer, but I'll be honest, it could run on a Mac, it could run on Linux. It probably would run on a tablet. I usually recommend something wired, right? I'm a big fan of wired networking over wireless when it comes to
like
live
wires.
Production.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yes.
Believe me, wireless is great when it works, but for live production, wires are better. And so typically it's a desktop type computer, but I mean it doesn't have to be a PC. If you're a Mac house and you're like, man, I just want to run it on my iMac or a MacBook or whatever, that's perfectly fine. It just runs in a web browser.
Nice. So simple. So clean. I love it. And so this isn't the only app you've developed to work within the TriCaster. You've got a host of these, some with interfaces, some without, because they're designed to be driven just part of the regular macros. What are some of the other highlight ones that you've sort of focused on?
Well, I actually have a bunch of free ones I put out there that people have used, and that's what I've done to learn this. But then, yes, I've written some for professional services clients. So this was one, right, that's turned into a kind of a full app. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones I've done. I did one for a sporting team. They needed to have very simple clip playback, and they actually had a system that they were using, but it was no longer developed and supported, and I think it was having problems, so they wanted to replace it. And they basically, the task was, the TriCaster is going to play back clips, but we want the interface to look like our old interface because that's what we're used to. So I literally got screenshots of what their old interface looked like and rebuilt a web interface that mimicked how their old system worked. So they were literally pressing the buttons like they used to, and it would make the TriCaster do what it needed to react in that same manner. Right.
Sometimes we all go way too far for our clients. I love it.
But the thing was, they wanted the learning curve to be nothing. Right. Yeah. We already know how to run the old system. We just need it to be updated and new and working. But we just, our learning time, we want to just cut that out. Okay, we'll make it work like the old system did. So that's just one example.
The GUI like that? That's amazing.
It was a very simple GUI, I will admit, but it was, we recreated the GUI of what they basically had of all through a web interface. So they just load the clips into the DDRs, and then this system would then, you'd press the button and it would actually query the DDR. It would get how much video is loaded in the DDR dynamically and then create a countdown timer. So as it played back, it would count down and tell them how much time is playing out on the DDR. So through the web interface, you could see, like, you would hit play and it would say, 30 seconds, 29 seconds, 28 seconds, right? So stuff like that. And then the other thing you're talking about, the external control. Yes, I've created all sorts of extensions into the TriCaster's macro system that allow us to send out commands to external systems, right? So that we could control some other piece of gear out there. And so like the thing we just a couple weeks ago with a Cinedeck, right? The Cinedeck I found out had an API. We put in some commands so that we could tell Cinedeck to start recording, stop recording, play, right? And literally you could, inside your TriCaster, not only could you record locally, right, but you could then trigger your Cinedeck to do external recording for like backup or to alternate video formats, right? Maybe you needed to get a ProRes file along with the native NDI recording, right? Here you could make a macro and get both at the same time. Or MXF, yes, everyone's favorite.
That one confused a few people. They're like, why would you want to have external recording? I'm like, because post-production people want to work in different codecs, and this makes sense. So we actually have Jordan's going to be dropping a video on that one. I don't know. Are we posting that anytime soon?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, so we're going to have a video on that. So we did a little showcase of the app functionality. Rick embedded some buttons for me because I'm not good with macros, so he made it really easy for me on the the internal web UI, so I could just click the start and stop button.
Push this button.
Yeah, no, I think you even labeled it that way, didn't you? Push this button here. So we did a nice little mock-up to showcase the work you did, along with a simultaneous screenshot of the Cinedeck turning on, turning off. So we'll be publishing that here really shortly, just to show people.
Awesome.
And that's the key feature about the TriCaster, is that although we can get as complex as this awesome interface that Kane created, you can also go in and take individual macros and have multiple macros be triggered by a single button push, and be able to create some very simplified external triggers out to, as you mentioned, all these other devices. And it's all available to you.
Well, old school broadcast engineers always shy away from integrated products like this because they don't want all their eggs in one basket, right? And I think what you're showcasing for us here is they don't have to be. Even though you're producing through the TriCaster, you can have your recording externalized through an NRS system or a Cinedeck for better, for different codecs. You can use third-party graphics. You can do all this and run the greater, sort of production without running it all through the TriCaster, but you use its interface to drive everything, right? And use it as sort of your control system at that point. And, it's just about the flexibility here that you just don't get with a hard-coded system. It's a beautiful thing. I love it. Well, listen, guys, this has been fun. Kane, you are welcome anytime. Please darken our doorstep or our monitor over here. Because
thank you. It's been great. I would absolutely love to be on again.
Despite all the hurdles, right? Yeah, that's good.
What hurdles?
Hey, I'm not throwing shade.
Now we got the process down.
We may have had technical difficulties in our network. One bad cable begets a big mess. You got to love the network. But really enjoyable having you on. Thank you so much, Rick. Always a pleasure. Get back to work. Can
we talk about outputs next time? Can we talk about destinations and programs out next time?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We need to, because that's a whole nother story, right? Especially, and that's one that I think affects more than just your city council folk and those who are looking at this. It's everybody really needs to be thinking about what is the broader destinations, right? What are all the ways we can get content out? So it sounds like the next episode, Rick. I love it. All right. Cool beans. Again, gentlemen, thank you both for being here. Mixmaster Jordan, thank you for running control.
Thanks for having me.
Kane, it's always a pleasure. Kane, if people want to get a hold of you or get more info on these plugins I'm going to call them plugins, by the way. How do they do that?
Well, the best way is contact your NewTek rep or reseller. They can get you information on professional services, the team I'm with, and then we can figure it out from there based upon what exactly you're trying to do. Because the last thing I'll just mention is that while we have a bunch of these pre-made, we could potentially build these custom based on your needs. That's actually how most of these things that I've controlled have come up. People said, "Can I control this thing?" And it's like, yeah, we can make that happen. And we built a control. So it didn't exist until we made it exist.
That's beautiful. Nope. And that's the power here. I love it. All right, gentlemen, thank you, both of you, for being here. We're going to call this episode a wrap. We'll see you all on the next Exertis Broadcast Podcast.